welcome to the Tuesday, December 10th meeting of the Air Planning Board. This hearing of the Air Planning Board will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with a particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting ID 978-772-8220 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Danny Ruiz, Town Planner, at druiz@air.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 144 prior to the meeting. For first order of business is the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or do any changes on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Can Kathleen vote on this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Ken, how do you vote?
Aye.
Kathleen? Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The first issue before us is the continued public hearing for 1 Park Street. And the applicant has requested, we have a letter. Mm-hmm. It's in the record, so we don't have to read it into the record. It's available online. And all of us got copies. So the applicant has requested a continuance of the January 14th, 2025 meeting. I need a motion for the continuance. Aye, I do. Yeah.
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ken, how do you vote?
Aye.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next, we have Stratton Hill. I'm going to invite the representative of the applicant, Bob Collins, to come before us. Is Ann joining you this later?
Well, you know, I'm surprised she's not here, but maybe she'll be coming. I thought she was coming. I thought that's what she said last week.
Okay. So what's going to happen today regarding Stratton Hill is I've asked Danny to give us a kind of summary of where we are, what the remaining issues are, which is a much smaller subset than the previous meeting. And then we're going to tackle the largest of the remaining issues, which is the disposition of the open space. And we've asked Bob Collins, the counsel for the applicant, and Ann Gagnon from Fish and Wildlife to do a little presentation on their ideas.
It looked like you were gesturing as though she
Well,
was
she's not there yet. So we'll talk about the other stuff until then. But Danny, you take it away.
All right. So at the last meeting that we had where Stratton Hill was here, we went through the peer review comments. The planning board made quite a few decisions on open items that was left open for the planning board to decide on through the comments that came out of the peer review. The applicant then took that, responded to the comments, addressed updated the plans, and submitted them back to us. We have sent those over to DPW. They have already reviewed it. And we have sent it over to Green International for them to do their last review. Okay. So what I think from that is, we're probably at the tail end. This might be the last review from Green. There may be some minor things that come out of this last review. So we'll see how the meetings in January go. We may have one more additional just to kind of clarify anything else left. We specifically had kind of set this meeting for open space because that was kind of like the last big topic that needed to be discussed as to what was going to happen with the open space based on how the OSRD is written, who's going to have ownership, who's going to hold the CR, or something similar to that structure. There was a meeting with myself, Jonathan, Attorney Collins, Ann Gagnon, Heather, the conservation agent, and as well as town manager Robert. And we just kind of had discussions as to how the town felt from our perspective of the open space, what we would like to see, And with the applicant got to speak about what they would like to see, as well as Ann Gagnon also got to speak about what they would like to see. And they will actually.
You couldn't get in.
Oh, sorry. We'll actually have them, give a presentation as to, what they had discussed with the town, and just kind of let the planning board know where they feel they want the open space to go. Because at this point, it's kind of, the applicant has the chance to give the planning board a presentation as to where they want the open space to go to. And then the planning board will then take what they've said and make a decision from there.
Can
So-
I ask just one quick clarification? Danny,
Yes.
are we saying that the sixth submission is the current plans that you
Yes.
just reviewed? I'm just trying to make sure the public
Yes,
understands we
yes.
get on and get the last grouping.
Yep, so if you're under the current applications and plans, the sixth submission is the one that we received a few weeks back, and that is currently being reviewed by Green International.
Okay.
And I just want to bring Ann up to speed. So we've reached the Stratton Hill agenda item, and we've just set up that Danny just gave us a backgrounder, where we are at this date, what remains open, and we've set you and Bob Collins up to present about your ideas about the open space. So please, when you're ready, please join us at the table.
So when you're ready for me to start,
You're
I
ready, you
can.
start when the two of you are ready. You have.
So, as Danny said, we're down a very, very short list of little open items. I actually want to talk to you about the open space, give you an update on a couple of things. I actually have gone through what I believe I'm going to put in letter form regarding conditions of approval, and there's a couple that I want to mention to you this evening that I have questions about. And then the last thing I'm going to bore you with for about the 18th time, back in July, I gave you a list of about a dozen waivers. I am going to want to go over that with you to make certain. I think some of them are superfluous at this point. Some of them I think we still need, but I want to make certain we're all on the same page with that. But with regard to the open space, which was the principal reason for this whole exercise that we've been doing over the last, depending on which plan you look at, the last 4 or 5 years or the last 20 years, the current plan, the sixth rendition, creates 2 open space parcels. One is 121.08 acres, and the other is 9.79 acres. The 9.79 acres is the area between the subdivision road and Long Pond, south of the power lines. The 121 acres is a very small part of it is to the left-hand side of the area south of the power lines, but the bulk of it is everything from the power lines to the Groton border, and contains important environmental features that are worthy of protection. So it's the thing that is notable about this property is not only the size of it. This again is the end of a 650 acre parcel of land, which through the good fortune of just circumstance did not get developed. It just sat and empty, and developed because of its interesting topography. The thing that's really kind of cool, if I can go on for a second, when we did the conservation inventory 20 years ago, it really was quite fascinating because the scale of what is mostly on the Audubon side, the 437 acres that Dave Moulton and Bob Lacombe gifted to Audubon, but some of it spills over into this. The way the topography works, it's separated different environmental areas so that you actually have completely separate areas of completely separate features separate from what's immediately next to it. So you'll have very pristine wetlands that are have completely different species over here from over there, and completely different visual features, different plant life. It really is kind of cool. And then the glacier also did a real number on this part of area, so there's all kinds of very interesting topography. There actually is a lot of, one of the nicest features, if you ever get a chance to go out and hike on the Audubon property, there are areas of exposed bedrock that have grooves from the glacier. And I've always thought that's just the coolest thing. And happily, again, going back to what good fortune we all have that this property just sat. If you think about it, it was purchased back in the 50s, so 70 years ago, by a company that was in the business of creating crushed stone. Well, there was a lot of stone. That's why it was called Rocky Hill. Well, those neat features would have disappeared if they had ever, it would have been quarried, and happily they never got around to it. So we've all had the good fortune that this property has just stayed, and we're all going to benefit from it in perpetuity. So what we would like to do, and what Mr. Moulton had specifically wanted to do, was to create an area that was the bulk of the property that he wanted to gift to the Commonwealth to be administered by the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife. This, when you were doing the introduction, it occurred to me I had already done the deeds with a nice letter, and I forgot to send that over to you, so I'll get it over tomorrow. But the form of gift would be what we call a deed in trust, which actually provides a higher level of permanent protection than just a conservation restriction. So it's really quite ingenious, and as an attorney, I get into interesting things like this because, which shows what law school does to your mind, but that I find it interesting. But what I do is create beneficial interests in the general public and in the Commonwealth and in the species that are situated on that property, so their protection becomes a beneficial interest. And it's all bundled together in a way that fits within the confines of the protection offered by Article 97 of the amendments to the Massachusetts Constitution. And that creates barriers that are almost impossible to overcome, so that nobody could ever commit it to another use. So it's of a higher level of protection than a CR. But you've got a question,
Yes,
Jonathan.
for those of us who are lawyers, what does a beneficial interest mean legally? I think that has some meaning.
What's interesting about it, when you trusts, so what a trust is, it's an invention of English law, is somebody is holding something for the benefit of somebody else. And in property, you can actually take all of the incidents of ownership that most of us, when we own a home, we have all of the incidents of ownership of the land that we own. But you can actually do some nifty things and separate some of the different aspects of ownership. And what a deed in trust does is it creates a beneficial interest. So you're essentially giving rights to the general public, giving rights to the Commonwealth, and giving rights to the protection of species.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity. And in order to undo it, you would need to, first of all, meet the stipulations that are set forth in Article 97 of the amendments to the Mass Constitution, which would require an act of the legislature, an act of the town meeting. But then the neat thing about a deed in trust is you would need the assent of the people who, the entities that have the beneficial interest, and you would need the assent of the grantor. So when Mr. Moulton, and unfortunately it will end up being his son, but when Dave Moulton signs the deed, he would need to agree to a change. The Commonwealth would need to agree to a change. The general public would need to agree to a change. And you'd have to get what we call a guardian ad litem to represent the interests of the species. They would need to assent. Plus, you would need a town meeting vote. Plus, you would need an act of the legislature. It's never going to happen. So I think we've made something that is cumbersome enough that I doubt it can ever be undone, which is an important thing. So that will be protected in perpetuity. I want to talk about the Commonwealth for a second, though. One of the reasons why we wanted the Commonwealth to have the underlying fee in this land was, first of all, to assist them because there were other sizable pieces, and sizable pieces are becoming few and far between, that this touches, that perhaps this will help them to protect some additional land. But also it was a way, they have resources and expertise, and it was a way to have somebody that has the resources and the expertise to be able to take care of this property without that being a burden on the Ayer taxpayer. So the inhabitants of the town of Ayer get the benefit of the open space, but actually at no cost. And so we're putting the cost on my good friend Dan and the Commonwealth of Mass, but the Commonwealth has the resources to deal with it. Now, on this side of the power lines, Dave, first of all, Dave Sr. felt very strongly that he wanted to protect the land going up to the pond, and it still aggravates me. Originally, when we had some of the lots on the other side of the power lines, we had nothing on the right-hand side of the subdivision road, and when we had to compress it all down here, we had to, tweak it a little bit, and we've got 2 units there in what he had actually wanted to have protected, but the bulk of it is protected. We felt it was a good idea for the town to own that, because, first of all, it's smaller. Second of all, there are resource areas there. Third of all, a portion of the drainage system that serves to deal with the runoff from the subdivision road is there. So it makes sense that that be owned by the municipality.
That'd also be deed in trust.
That will also be a deed in trust, and it has the exact same language that the deed to the Commonwealth has. When we had this meeting that we were talking about last week, so I'm so glad Heather is here. We had got.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, yes, yes.
sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Collins is referring to a screen that is not being shared with us.
Oh,
The
shoot.
right-hand screen, Danny?
Yes.
Could you just put that up so we can see what it is? Thank you. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's the site plan.
Yeah, it's the lot layout plan, Jeff.
Thanks. And good evening. I'm sorry, Bob, I couldn't make it.
Oh, no, that's all right. No, but it's good to say, I'm so glad you're here.
No, the weather is, I'm not going to drive a round trip from Western Mass tonight. Sorry, guys, you won't worth it. But no, I don't know if you want to share that or not. It's just, I know Bob's just referring to it, so thank you.
I'm trying to. It's showing there,
Yeah,
but
I'm seeing the screen share, so I don't know if there's something. Maybe Jeff, is there a pin on your screen? A screen that's pinned or something? I don't know.
yeah.
Just a thought. I'm seeing
Oh,
it.
hold on. There could be me.
Because I am sharing.
Yeah. Now, Kathy, are you able to see the screen?
I just see people.
Oh, maybe Kathy can't hear me. But
Might be pinned.
You know, I keep going. I do have the plan. So if Dan, you can see what they're talking about. I just see the room and I see the screens above Jonathan's shoulders. No worries.
Yeah.
I'll poke around here. Thank you. It could very well be me.
in any event,
Yeah, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's quite all right. One thing that I wanted to get into tonight, we had talked last week when we had this little, meeting about doing a CR on the land that would get conveyed to the town. And to tell you the truth, I honestly don't believe you need it. I didn't do it.
Not if it goes directly to the conservation.
Yeah,
Under
and-
the care, custody,
Yeah,
control
and
of
that
conservation.
is how I've got it drafted. So I actually do believe it's overkill, but I could do a restriction, but actually I don't believe you need it.
Just for the record, I mean, I'm typing it, but Heather Hampson, the conservation agent, to the chair, to Bob, Mr. Attorney Collins. The
Oh, you can
commission
call me
meets,
Bob.
the commission meets on this on Thursday.
Yeah,
I think it's best if we ask them their opinion on
Yeah.
how they want to hold it. I'm just one person out of a 5-member
and I'll get you
commission.
a copy of the
So
deed.
I feel like that's best. This is obviously going to be continued again. We're not
Yes.
closing this out tonight, so I don't think I need to make a decision
Yeah.
on that this
No,
evening.
you don't.
So let's just ask the commission Thursday night and see how
Yeah.
they feel it should go. Just because I don't know if we're going to need anything as far as the way previous CRs have been set up in town, to the town, because it's private landowner, town holds a CR. There's been money given to the town to, or supposed to be, for the monitoring of those.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the town's taking the land, if that's something they'd want to keep, seeing something like that to go through to help with the maintenance of the property
Yeah.
for encroachment. So let's just ask them how they feel on
Yeah.
Thursday.
But I will get you a letter with a copy of the deed by Thursday.
Okay.
And if by chance I forget, call me Thursday morning and I'll throw
Okay.
something together and get it over to you.
Bob and Ann, before we open it up to questions, and I don't know if you're close to done, but part of what your talk before you close
Yeah,
is could the two of you paint a picture for us about what this 121 acres would look like under Fish and Wildlife? Just, for instance, hunting. Just tell us, if you tell us a little more about what's going to happen to this, because there's enormous town interest in this wonderful piece
Yeah.
of land, and we all want to know if it goes to Fish and Wildlife, what's your vision for it?
I was just checking to see
If
how
Mar-
much of the public was here tonight. I can't tell how many people are
We have
online.
only a couple of people. 10 people.
10 people? Oh, okay. Yes, so all of Fish and Wildlife's land, for the most part, is open to the public during the day. So we don't allow people to go camping overnight. It's basically dawn to dusk.
Excuse me, and that's consistent with a lot of land management in
Yeah.
Massachusetts, right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I assume that the
Yes.
town doesn't
Same
let
thing.
people camp on their property, but I don't know, you would know that better than I would.
Mhm.
So yes, our land is typically open to hunting and fishing and trapping and recreational use that does not conflict with wildlife habitat management. It does not allow motorized vehicles. So no ATVs, no dirt bikes, no trucks. We manage our land for wildlife habitat.
Mm-hmm.
As you are aware, there's a number of rare species that occur on this property. So that would be one of our top priorities, is to make sure that those rare species don't become more rare.
Right,
and
of course.
that they thrive on the property. Fish and Wildlife has a section called the Mass Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, and they operate autonomously. So they will issue a permit
Mhm.
for this project, which is called a conservation and management permit.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that that has not yet been issued.
No, they already issued a permit on the initial one.
Right.
We submitted the amendment. I have spoken with the review biologist. I don't have the amended permit back yet, but
It's in process.
it's in process and they are thrilled with they're thrilled with this design.
So as Bob mentioned, a CMP was issued originally for this subdivision when it was originally approved.
Yes,
Many years ago. And as you know, the project has changed substantially since then. And there's much less impact in terms of acreage, et cetera, than what was originally proposed. So now there'll be much more preserved open space.
Wonderful.
And I think that the CMP will also require the construction of a turtle nesting
that's correct.
area.
Yeah.
So
And the endowment of it. So what we do, we've already done it in Groton. We actually gift the funds to maintain it in perpetuity. It's based on a 20-year thing. But we'll be doing the same thing over here.
And I also believe that in consequence of the meeting you previously referenced, that there is the potential for further trail development, and that's something that Fish and Wildlife would negotiate with Conservation Commission?
well, when we own the property, right? And so, as I mentioned at this previous meeting, the first thing we should do is locate all the existing trails.
Yep.
Mhm.
So I've already begun that process. I don't know if you've started doing that. No? Okay. So,
And we can actually probably provide a plan.
yeah. I have some plans, but
Yeah.
I think it's too preliminary to hand them
That's
out
fine.
to you.
I wasn't looking for specifics. I just wanted to the people listening, anyone watching the recording, to have the understanding that that potential exists for that recreational walking there.
Yes, there are extensive existing trails. In addition, there's another portion of land that is not part of this development, that's separate, that's owned by Attorney Collins's
Yeah,
client.
that's gonna be a separate gift.
That will be a separate gift
Oh.
to the Conservation Commission
Yeah,
along Long Pond.
yeah,
And that property already has an existing trail throughout it. So
Yeah.
there's,
but that of course
That's
is
They wanna do
outside.
it.
that's that's outside of the
Yes.
of the
yes, it
subject.
is, but
Yeah.
I think it's important that the public understands that there
Yes.
are
Yes.
trails that will be accessible.
I
Oh,
agree.
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that that's clear for the public
Yeah.
because they haven't,
And if I could interrupt for a second, Ann, on that subject, when we negotiated out the conservation management permit, which encompassed the whole site, part of that was we identified, and we'll be doing the same over here, existing trails, and then creating the ability, a method for additional trails in the future. Pardon me. Pardon me. But, thank you. But in any event, we actually dealt with that. There are certain areas, I'm not necessarily convinced that any of them are over here, but I do recall quite distinctly that there were certain areas that we actually wanted to discourage active usage, and so we directed the trails away from those. I think most of those were on the Groton side, but we certainly will create the methodology in the gift for, first of all, the right to utilize the existing trails and the right to create new trails off in the future.
with Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah, with fish,
Of
yeah,
course.
well,
Not-
it's, yeah, 'cause
not-
it's your property,
Correct.
yeah.
I just want to make that clear.
Repeat that again if you would for me.
So in other words, we're gonna create rights in the existing trails in the deed. We also will create a methodology for the creation of additional trails in the future, in the deed, so that Fish and Wildlife has a process that's in the deed itself as an exception to the deed and trust, so that people can create additional trails in the future.
That would be under their creation.
Yes,
You would have to-
you would work in conjunction with
Yeah.
with
If
them.
it's our, yes, if it's,
Yeah,
if
so,
it's the
yeah, it'll be
Commonwealth's
through
property,
them.
it's our responsibility to make sure that we're not.
But that actually is already the case under the conservation management permit that's already recorded. So if you read the
read it.
CMP, it's actually in there, already. But we'll recite all of that in the deed and in the instrument of gift.
So the CMP that's issued by Mass Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, whether Fish and Wildlife owns the property or the town owns the property, they're still gonna
It's gonna be the
regulate.
same,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad you said it that way, because if we gave all of the land to the town, that restriction would still apply.
Right, of
Because
course.
it's already in the conservation management
The
permit.
CMP right now gives all the land in Ayer to the Conservation Commission, so you'll have to amend that accordingly.
Well, that's right,
That land.
yes,
it's in the
yeah.
process
If
of,
that's in the process, she's already aware of that, yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. Are you ready to have, take questions?
Sure, yeah, and then I have other stuff I wanna go over with you, but yeah.
Yeah, so let's do the open
Yeah,
space.
let's do the open space
So I
first.
would, first to my peers and then to the public. Ken, did you have questions?
I do, but I'll let these guys go.
So I would just first open it over to Heather, just
Okay,
in
thank
case
you.
to make sure she
Yep.
has anything she wants to.
I don't. I just didn't know if anybody had any questions in regards to the meeting that took place and the town/commission's stance on the property and having it go to Fish and Wildlife.
And you guys,
The
So I'm saying that's
Yep.
we're letting Fish and Wildlife. I don't know if anybody in the audience or anything had any questions in regards to the town stance on that.
okay.
Well, I was gonna take, okay, for you, right, for that? No, the town stance on, she was.
Well, it would actually go through me because it'd be the way the commission, the planning board is handling. It's been going to Conservation Commission, so it actually goes through me as the agent, in
Yeah.
town.
Excuse me, I interpreted it differently. When I took the town stance, I meant beyond the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, so the way it would work
Town in
is,
general, not just the Conservation Commission. When you made that statement, I took it differently than you projected it.
okay, I mean, you're asking like what my opinion is?
So I meant, when she said the town stance, I thought she meant not the Conservation Commission, outside the Conservation Commission, the thought around town of all the
Oh,
boards.
no, I mean, as far as the
All
town,
the
Official.
boards in town, people
Well,
involved in town,
it-
not just the Conservation Commission.
well, if the open space would go to anybody in the town, it would go to conservation. So when I say the stance of the town, I'm speaking of which the agency of which that would, the town that would hold the land. So that's essentially
Okay,
that.
so the position of you guys is that you're okay with Fish and Wildlife?
Correct, yes, they would have
That's-
the time and the resources of which to do so. I, as the agent, and speaks with Ann from the meeting, that whenever work would take place on this going forward, and if any trails would be created or any walks on there to do any work on there, that, my office be notified so that we can be involved in it as much as possible, just as the town as a whole. So, because obviously, as the agent, people come to my office with questions on where's trails in town and which ones are the best ones. Being able to know that information firsthand, whether it's Fish and Wildlife property or town property, is very helpful. So I've made that request, going forward, that when those things take place, that we're able to do that together.
And just my opinion as the town planner, I mean, having Fish and Wildlife have the property and have the funds to be able to maintain it is a big thing, because the town wouldn't have to take on that additional funding that would be necessary for the maintenance, the ongoing maintenance, and whatever else that it entails. The yearly
management is
monitoring.
expensive.
Yeah,
It
the yearly monitoring and everything that goes with that.
Okay.
But we also get the benefit of being able to use it as a public open space.
No, and truth be told, when I can't believe it's this many years ago, but 25 years ago, when we were dealing with this site, because this all started in 1998, when Audubon came forward and was willing to take the 437 acres, that was a gift, because the town of Groton would not have had the resources to manage that property. Now, this isn't 437 acres, but it's 121, and it's 121 acres that requires management, or it will,
Attention.
yeah, periodic stuff has to happen, or it will become, choked with invasives in areas, the trails will cease to exist. And the Commonwealth has the resources and the people and the expertise to deal with it. So well, no, but, and the other thing, and I don't know, do you guys own anything in Ayer? You own the old, yeah, you're the
My
pheasant
office
farm.
isn't
Yeah, but they own conservation land in Groton, and they're a wonderful partner. They really are. And the land you own in Ayer now really is under active usage. I really wouldn't call it conservation land as much, because it is the old farm, but you do own land in Groton that is conservation land. And I can say from personal knowledge, they're a wonderful partner to have. So it'll be good for the town, and again, it won't cause a negative impact on the municipal budget. Money is hard to come by. They've got more of it than we do, so.
Okay, great. Any other of my board colleagues? Yes, Kathleen?
I'm not sure who to direct this question to, so I'll just kind
Just throw it
of
out
speak to the table. Not being familiar with the deed and trust kind of scheme, how does that relate to the timeline of the construction of the subdivision?
It would be before building permits are issued.
And so before building permits are issued, Fish and Wildlife would
Own the property. And the town would own the property.
They would be managing that property, potentially deciding on trails.
That's correct.
Even potentially before the first house.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I reserve rights as needed to deal with any construction issues. There's actually materials that we talked about last week, and I talked to my client about it. He actually wants those, so he'll remove the materials that are left over from the construction that took place. Yeah.
Who's gonna take those?
Well, yeah, because actually,
Is there a stove out there too?
yeah, no, he'll deal with all of that.
Can I have dibs on the trailer?
And that actually will save additional material from having to be trucked in. So there is stone and there is clay, there's some loam that actually would be utilized south of the power line. So he'll clean it up to your satisfaction and to your satisfaction. It's gonna
To
be on
natural
your land.
heritage.
Yeah. And then, of course, he's gonna be doing the construction of the nesting area out on what's gonna be Fish and Wildlife property. So I'll have the ability to do some construction, but the conveyances will occur ahead of time before the houses are built.
Thank you.
This is the turtle
I got a
habitat.
bunch.
So, you're good. Jeff, did you have any questions for Bob and Ann?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, it sounds like a lot of work has gone into this, and I'm very appreciative of what they've done.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So Ken, I think you're queued up.
Yeah, so thanks for working together on all this, you guys, Heather,
Yeah.
Bob, and I got a few, and I appreciate the time we're taking, and thank you, Danny, for getting a single item for this meeting, because this is a huge topic for me.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Jonathan and I have walked the entire site several times. Come in from the Groton side, as well, walked over the hills, down around, everywhere you can imagine. So there are quite a few trails out there. So I've got a few things, and some of these are gonna be kind of a trick question. The first one is a trick question.
Not from you, Ken.
So we have never seen an assent agreement from New England Power for going under the power lines. You never had it in the past.
Nope. And I still
to
don't
us.
have it now. I have put a call
Now,
into,
what I'm saying is I'm going to Ann.
yep,
So if anyone's gonna use those trails, I believe, I might be wrong.
oh, I'm gonna get you something before you sign the plan.
Okay, so we'll see an assent agreement.
Well, I don't think they have to do an assent agreement, because no construction is occurring. But I'll get something from them saying they do not have
Other
a problem
public
with the trails. I'll get what you need.
All right, so keep that in mind.
Yep.
Um,
I mean, we actually have superior rights to them. They have an easement on our property.
Right, but as soon as you put somebody under there and decide it's gonna be the Commonwealth, I think the Commonwealth has to protect their rights to go
Well,
through
they
there.
do, but the Commonwealth will stand in the exact same position that Mr. Moulton does. He's the landowner. He has the right to walk under those power lines and to access his property through it. The Commonwealth is gonna have the same
I
right.
said it was a technical trick
Yeah,
question, so.
but I'll get you what you
If you're
need.
gonna wanna keep it clean, I think
Yeah,
you wanna check.
but I don't think it has to be an assent agreement, but I've had extensive conversations with National Grid. That comes into play when there's gonna be construction. There's no construction.
Okay. I wanted to add something, a comment to your open space that goes to the town, that it actually does also abut town Article 97 land that's
It does.
controlled by the water department. As another benefit for you
Yeah.
to point out.
Is the water department land Article 97 land?
Absolutely. All the water department land is 97. And that's a big chunk over there.
Yeah. Yeah, and clean water actually is one of the rights that I recite in the deed.
Right.
The rights of the general public to clean water, and clean air. So the fact that the water department already has stuff right there is convenient.
So you stated that, and there'll be no ATMs out there. There are currently now hunters that use ATVs, excuse me. There are hunters that use ATVs now that hunt there.
Well, I don't know if,
Just telling you that as a thing. That's
There's gonna be signage.
So even if there was a CR on it, they wouldn't have been allowed on it, even if we owned it too.
Right,
'Cause
so just.
only passive recreation is allowed.
Just info.
Yeah.
If I can build on that, I mean, I know from witnessing, that people on dirt bikes do use the easement. And I just want you to be aware that that is an issue, and be prepared for that.
Yeah. And it's gonna be an issue even with the prohibition
course it
and
will
even with the signage. It will be an issue.
Yes, it will.
That's some of the enforcement that they'll have to take care of and not myself.
Except it could be driving through the subdivision to get there. That's what I'm concerned about.
There would be a way the town, I mean, the people that live there would notify, because
Yeah.
there's,
Again,
Yeah, that's very visible.
It'll go down, I think, once people are there.
yeah, we
it would, I would suggest that perhaps the planning board might consider, if there's a homeowners association document of some sort.
I don't
that-
actually have to create one, but I
Right,
could.
but if you do, you might want to put in there that ATVs or dirt bikes or motorized
Right.
vehicles of any kind are not allowed on any of the open space, including
Yes.
the land that's coming to the town.
Right.
And that way, because,
yeah.
to be honest, sometimes new subdivisions,
the homeowners are gonna bring their own.
Yep.
landowners are the worst
Yep.
ones, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, they
Anything
need to
we
understand.
can do to make sure
Right.
that they understand, I mean, obviously, we will put up signage that says no motorized vehicles.
Mhm.
But, it wouldn't hurt if there was something even in your approval,
In the
or whatever.
approval.
Yeah, maybe even in the approval.
That
we
would be
can
convenient.
have a condition
Right,
that within that open space.
right.
Just so that,
Unless it's for management purposes, so for
Okay.
instance, Fish and Wildlife,
Yeah.
would be able to use equipment.
And New England Power, yeah.
and New England Power, yeah, since they run through there. But like, if we do have that condition, then when they eventually build and sell the lots, the owners know that that's one of the conditions that
Yeah.
has already been forewarned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So I got 3 more questions or comments. So having walked all the existing trails, including the ones that you referred to that are outside the project, at this point in time, there is no maintenance being done up there.
No.
Would we see that those trails are gonna be opened up and cleaned up before they become part of your, now your property typically you do not maintain trails. We've walked your properties. And Mass Wildlife as a policy appears to have no maintenance on their trails and no
Yeah,
signage on the trails.
That's not actually true.
Okay,
Yeah, so we do prioritize wildlife habitat, particularly in a parcel like this,
Right.
where you have many different rare species, it's our obligation, particularly under the CMP, to make sure that we maintain that rare species habitat. That being said, I'd love for any of you to point out any parcel that Fish and Wildlife owns where there isn't extensive trail network
The pheasant
already
farm.
existing.
Oh, that's funny.
Excuse
Oh, is
me?
it?
I'm sorry, what?
The pheasant farm?
Yeah, there are actually trails
There are?
behind the
Oh.
pheasant farm. Yeah, there's
Oh.
extensive. Yep, I'll be glad to walk them with you sometime.
I would love to do that.
So, yes, the
Terrific.
where there's buildings and where the pheasant farm itself used to be, no, there's not, you know, you don't want to be directing people towards
No.
buildings that need to be torn down.
Yeah.
So, but yes, almost in fact, every parcel that I can think of that I've acquired since I've been with the state over 15 years, all has existing trails, with the possible exception of salt marsh parcels.
Of
which,
course. Right. Salt marshes.
salt marshes.
So my concern was that, my question was, is there an expectation when we look at the trails that plotted out on a drawing, we know where they are, that those overgrown trails will be opened up somewhat before they?
Well, maybe you could show me some of these overgrown trails, because number one, the first thing Fish and Wildlife will do is map the existing trails. And there may be trails out there that are overgrown that Natural Heritage says, yeah, best to leave those overgrown and
Yeah.
leave them alone because we don't want to direct people in that particular area.
Right.
So before we decide, you know, whether trails need to be maintained or not, we need to evaluate the impact of those trails. What I was going to say, Ken, is that all the land that I've acquired that has trails, they somehow miraculously end up being maintained. They don't disappear once Fish and Wildlife owns them. It's the strangest thing. Personally, I think it's because they're used
Yeah.
more often, and people are out there walking on them, and that just maintains them in and of themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And you know, on
Part
that
of this had
subject,
to do,
Ken,
part of the trail map, what had to do with again, just think about these things for the future. Had to do with signage and marking typically of trails.
well,
do
we're gonna
not-
have signage at the head, where the parking area is.
Okay.
And that's something we're actually gonna provide. And I don't know if you do trail markers here and there,
Not
like they do
usually,
in
but
Groton.
we do have,
Yeah.
boundary markers
Right.
Yes.
on our
I've
seen
seen
those.
those.
Yeah.
I've seen those. Just a piece of advice. If you do put blazes, don't put them on the dead trees because they fall over and then the blazes are gone. All right.
So is the expectation by conservation and by this committee that the baseline plan for, that's normally done for a CR will be the same as this requirement for these guys? A
Well,
massive,
The baseline document would not be done. What they would have, I would assume, in the gifting of the land, is they would have a deed with showing the plan, but like we would do like a mortgage plan.
Yeah.
I would assume there'd be something along those lines for that.
And
Yeah,
I
and
would
that would be-
include-
And I would assume that the planning board, if there's open space set aside that's required under this subdivision, that at least a portion of that boundary would be permanently
Yes.
marked.
Oh, the boundaries
Don't you
will
typically
all be,
require that?
yeah,
Yes.
there will
Oh,
be,
yes.
oh, they do.
bounds
Yeah.
that have to be placed.
Yeah.
And actually, truth,
Discussing the possible, the boundary along the back end of the property of like what is going to be out there for permanent marking so that people knows that this is open space and don't do anything past that.
Yeah.
Which is something that the board will still need to
Yeah.
discuss as to what it is we want to see there.
Yep, and what we've done in the past is we actually, install permanent bounds on the backside of the lots where it abuts conservation property. And then we do it at the lot corners, and there's a lot of corners.
Yeah.
with this. So it'll be, and I think, I don't wanna take the time now, but I'll check the plan. Stan normally will call out on the plan bounds that exist and then bounds that are to be placed. And if they aren't, I'll have Dillis and Roy generate a plan. And in answer to what Ken was asking, we don't do a baseline report analogous to a CR, but what I will be doing, in addition to the deed and a copy of the plan when we gift it over to the town, I'll be going through the CMP to make certain that there's nothing, and I don't think there is, but there's nothing that was called out 20 years ago on that part of the site. I don't think there is, but ironically, there is over on your side, south of the power lines, because I remember having a long conversation with Pat about that. But I don't think there was anything over here, but I'll check to make certain. And if there is stuff, I'll recite that I'll give them kind of a little cheat sheet of what they need to do and not do, on the property.
But Heather, didn't you mention, so there'll be a baseline plan that's done for the portion of the land that comes to the town?
Well, if there's no CR, then there'd
There's
be
no
no baseline
CR, so
report.
we don't do what we call a baseline plan.
No.
I'm gonna give you a plan, a deed, and then a narrative of any special conditions.
No. So the way,
I heard it differently before.
no, the way it works. So typically, the way it works, and the reason why you're thinking that way is because the typical process we've done is when you do in a CR, there's a baseline monitoring.
Baseline report.
But the baseline monitoring report is basically just the conservation analysis updated towards the end of the project. Because there wouldn't be a conservation restriction, the way it would work is the conservation analysis that we have would just would be an additional document that goes along with the deed. There's going to be a plan that's a conservation, like a line that shows the open space with bounds and everything that's within that deed. There'll be a recorded plan that goes along with it. And that's all the documentation we would need. We don't need the baseline because they're not doing a conservation restriction. That's a requirement through the state,
Yeah, the CR process.
Yeah,
through the CR process.
and the reason for it,
So that particular comment that I thought I heard before was part of our subdivision or zoning regulations under the RSA.
Our rules and regulations refers to a baseline monitoring report because of the state, the requirement that is needed for a CR through the state. So that's why it's in our rules and regulations. But since there's no CR, there's no need for the additional information to be updated for the baseline because we're not going to be monitoring yearly. They're going to be doing
I'm talking
the
about
town.
those two parts, so the town part as well, so their part I understand.
Yeah.
So the town,
So,
the town, I got that.
But
The
that'll
state
be
part is easy.
the information in the
Second.
conservation analysis is basically the exact same information.
That's taken care of before
so
this meeting.
like I said, at the beginning of this.
They still need
the-
to talk to
the
conservation.
Conservation Commission's meeting on this on Thursday.
Yeah.
And they'll make a final decision that this
Okay.
hearing is not closed, that there's still time, because there are gonna be, I'm sure at some point, requirements that we will talk about later as far as bounds go.
Yeah, bounds and also
Signage and all
signage.
that, and all
Yeah.
that.
Open space beyond this point, like that stuff all still needs to be discussed as part of your guys' process. They're gonna have their comments from conservation when they go on Thursday. When it comes back on for our next meeting, we will also need to be discussing that because that goes into the decision as well.
Yeah, I'm happy with the fact that it's simplified, believe me.
Hmm.
I think it's absurd that you have to do a baseline print of the whole perimeter.
Yeah.
That's why I'm bringing it up, so I'm glad it got clarified.
Yeah.
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
and we really don't have to.
I have a question. Does the planning board typically require stone bounds or granite bounds or whatever?
Yeah, what's in your regs?
Or do you allow iron pins? And the reason I ask is because it's, sometimes it's nice to be able to have iron pins so that you can take a metal detector
And you
and
can
find
find
them
'em.
in the future, 50 years from now when all of us are gone, most likely. Maybe you'll still be here.
Not that old.
Well, and Danny will be here.
Yeah, Daddy's just a kid.
No.
But my point is that, while
iron
it's
is
somewhat
convenient.
Yeah.
cheaper
And it
than
is cheaper.
a granite bound, it's,
He's talking about the lot.
maybe
I know what
the
you're talking about.
judicious use of
Yeah.
them next year or something like that.
Danny?
So, I was a surveyor at one point as well, so I understand the easiness of finding the iron pipes versus the granite bounds, because
Drill hole in it.
with a drill hole, sometimes it's covered from
Yeah.
years of
Yeah.
sediment and leaves.
Sometimes
and,
they
and
disappear.
Sometimes they disappear. So I would prefer, I mean, in my preference, a mix works as well as having additional signage as well of open space, because I always find that people seeing a bound or an iron, rod out there, rebar, don't always necessarily, because if this gets sold, years down the road, someone's gonna be like, oh, that's my lot corner, but that doesn't really mean much except for my lot corner. What I like to have is, sometimes you'll have bound, like a granite bound, and then you can have iron bounds between, but like maybe every 200 feet, it's a granite bound, so that there's some permanent structure as well as signage that's going to say, do not, drop your grass clippings behind here. But with these kind of situations, you want multiple things. Sometimes you see a split rail fence along the whole the whole line of the open space to prevent anyone from going past that point. But it's just, there's multiple ways of doing it, and having additional, more than just one always helps.
I would concur with that.
Mm.
You can figure that out, Mr. Chair.
Great. Do you have any more questions, Ken?
Oh, thank you.
Will there be envelopes around the duplexes where, for lawn and stuff like that, or?
Well, we hadn't talked about that. Those are small lots.
Mm-hmm.
So chances are the envelope is the lot. The lots range in size from, I think, about 18,000 to about 30,000.
They better figure that out before the commission decides if they're taking it or not.
Oh, no, we're not talking about your land. I'm talking about the lots.
The lots per se.
Yeah, so I would tend to believe there wouldn't be an envelope within. Sometimes on bigger lots, we'll do an
You'll have a
envelope.
buffer
Yeah,
of 30 feet,
Yeah.
from the lot line.
but these are pretty diminutive lots, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest.
Which
What's
is,
worked elsewhere, just to give you an idea of the combination, it's nice to have the lot corners on the back where they abut conservation land marked with granite bounds. You don't have to generally worry about encroachments of conservation land onto Fish and Wildlife property. I would tend to believe the border between you and Fish and Wildlife, iron pins would be fine, but it's nice to commemorate the back lot lines with granite because they're very visible.
Yeah.
And we can easily do that.
Thank you. Do we have anyone?
Chair.
Yes, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you. As I said earlier, a lot of conversation's gone into it. I would hope that as I look at the lots, the back lot lines, I'm hoping that you're not going to clear much beyond where the lots actually are currently demarked on the.
We can't.
On this, yeah, I know, and I got to tell you that is thick brush up there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's thick brush back there, so I think that works on your in your favor. And a shout out to Dan von Skalkwyk. Yeah, Dan, I didn't have it turned on in my new Zoom.
Ah,
It
So-
was me. It wasn't you, Danny.
So, I would like, I'm sorry, keep going. Did you have more, Jeff?
I was just, the granite markers versus the pins. I love the pins, but the granite markers do suggest to folks that they have a certain amount of panache that people like. And yeah, I agree with Attorney Collins. Sometimes granite markers disappear, but if they're within sight of
1
somebody's
foot
home,
grill.
typically not.
Size of rematch matches.
So, thank you, Jeff. Danny, do we have any members of the public? I see iPhone 2 up on I want to open this up to any public comment or public questions. I don't see anyone in the room.
Oh, wait,
Marion wants to say something.
we can go to Pauline after.
Okay, is that, Pauline has her hand up?
Yep.
So Marion, then Pauline. Marion, would you please,
And we lost Kathy Hebb. She was here.
I don't know what happened.
She's there. She's still here. There's 4. I can
You
change.
can change it to have the whole full screen.
Yeah, let's see everyone so we know. Thank you. We have a sense of who's here. Hi, Marion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I feel that I'm at a disadvantage because I have such poor hearing, so I could not hear what was being said at this table.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marion, I was trying to talk loud, too.
Well, I could hear you best of all. And I could hear a little bit of Anne, but I really was not able to hear other people who are here. I want, first of all, to thank the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, too, very much for all the time and thought and consideration that you folks have given this issue, which is very important to the town of Ayer and to surrounding area. And so I've had a long time interest in this property. Before moving to Ayer, I lived in Groton, and I did attend the Planning Board hearings and Conservation Commission hearings that were held there then regarding the Moulton property in Groton. And so was a party to the discussions then. And what I remember clearly is that the Groton Planning Board was very interested in and very appreciative of the Moulton family wanting to protect their land for conservation and recreation. And the Groton Planning Board also feeling that the town of Ayer no doubt had some different ideas than the Groton Planning Board about how they would like to have their land managed. And they thought, I remember at the time, thinking that the town of Ayer would perhaps like more recreational use than the town of Groton. That the town of Groton, I think, was more concerned with conservation. And feeling that there were a lot of people in Ayer who were interested in hunting and fishing, and that they would, when it came time for the town of Ayer to consider the future use of the Moulton property, that they would no doubt want to give a lot of attention to recreational uses, particularly hunting. And that perhaps this would also encourage people in Ayer who did own land. I think like that they might also like to make their land available to the town, that they might like to gift or sell their land for the same purposes of recreation, including hunting. Pardon?
I sure hope so.
Yes, right. So that's a hope. And so I think that the feeling was that we would like to do whatever we can to cause that to happen, to protect as much land as possible. And so I feel that we're moving in that direction. And I've gotten to know the land quite well. I've walked the land. There are a lot of trails, existing trails. And I mean, personally, I don't feel the need of creation of new trails, but I think that there could be some improvement to existing trails, and also some more signage so people would know, where the trails start and where they go and where they are on the property, because I know people get lost. I remember reading in the paper a couple of times where people were really seriously lost, and they had to bring in hunting crews to find these lost people. And
big site. It's big.
Yeah, it is. It's enormous.
It's enormous.
And I think that what I like is that the Ayer Planning Board is a consideration too for wildlife habitats, and particularly for endangered species. And so this, of course, has been a main concern of many, I think, including the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, the land underneath the high-powered tension lines. And I want to thank you very much for all of your work, and I hope that we'll be able to come up with a plan that will meet all of our interests and needs for now and for the future. And I really think that it is important to focus primarily on protection of our endangered species. I do think we have enough trails.
Okay, well, thank you.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good.
Thank you, Marion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marion.
Right.
Pauline would like to,
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, planning board, thank you to the Moultons.
Yeah, yeah.
Very much.
It's
All
too
right,
bad
thank you.
Dave Senior didn't live to
To
see this,
to
but
see
his
this.
son is still very
Right,
interested.
well, but his family is
That's
here,
right.
and so to be able to carry on.
That's right.
Thank
But thank you.
Thank you.
Pauline.
yep, Pauline?
I'm here, just waiting.
Oh, you have the floor.
So, thank you, Jonathan. I would like to follow up on something Ken was talking about. In fact, I think, Ken, you called it your first trick question. And I'm pretty much going to put this on your shoulders. You talked about trails and ownership and fishery and wildlife, potential residents, and the town of Ayer. Please look into indemnity agreements among those parties, because people who are going to use the trails that are being proposed, people get hurt, unfortunately. And if everything isn't spelled out correctly in an indemnity agreement, there's no telling what will happen if something is serious. So please keep that in mind as you go forward. And I'm happy to talk with all of you about it. I did that kind of work for 40 something years. So if I can help, I will.
Insurance
I think
specialist.
Mr. Pomperian is still in the audience, so I'm sure he can lend advice, but just we need to be very careful about the indemnity agreements on these walking trails.
Thank you, Pauline. I believe we have an attorney available here who would like to speak on that issue.
There actually is a statutory provision that exempts liability on the part of the landowner for land that is open to the public for conservation purposes. So, and in addition to that, the municipality, there are statutory limitations on liability that are set forth by statute. If you ever want to get injured, don't get injured on town land. Yeah, because it's very low. But there actually is a statutory provision that exempts liability for people using trails.
Thank you.
If there's no admission charge.
Yes, yeah.
How interesting. Okay,
Oh,
good.
if there's no admission.
Pauline, did you have anything else?
Just following up, yes, I realize there are statutory limitations, but let's all be sure we have all that in writing before we sign off on that. When I say we, I mean the town of Ayer in the manner of its planning board.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments or inputs? Okay. At this point, Bob, do you think that it would be appropriate to end here, or are there other issues that you would like to discuss before we move on?
I just have a couple of minor questions that I've got to ask you, and then I think we could continue to the next meeting, at which time I think we actually would be ready to kind of start wrapping this up. I just want to write a note about Pauline's thing so that I get your letter on it. I have a couple of really minor questions. One thing that came up.
What is
Sorry,
it,
Bob,
Danny,
just
what's
one
up?
thing. But I think Heather has something to do with open space.
Well, I have just a couple
Thanks, Dan.
Oh,
comments
okay.
in regards to the open space that the town is going
Yeah.
to get in the permit. It's going to have the hearing's going to happen on Thursday. And all of this is found in regards to the original conservation analysis findings from October 14, 2022,
Yeah.
that I'm sure you've all have seen a number of times and reviewed because it's been sitting in your file for a number of years. So it's regards to the conservation findings in regards to the forest slope along Long Pond.
Yeah.
With the request that stay as untouched as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So just this obviously, the commission will bring this up when it goes before the commission on
Yeah.
Thursday night, because that is where the stormwater system is going. I understand that we're staying that 100 feet away, so you have that 100-foot buffer.
That's right.
But the recommendation in the findings for the open space, for the conservation analysis, was to do absolutely nothing in that parcel. I know you've talked about putting draft conditions, special conditions together. So within this document, there's also general recommendations and considerations for conditions to it, and one of them is in regards to not allowing salt on the subdivision road, just because of the sensitivity for that Long Pond area as the only pristine pond in the town of Ayer. Or I know it was mentioned, I don't know if you remember, Bob, at an earlier meeting way before, when I was still before the planning board and not working for the Conservation Commission, that it was talked about if we were to have to do anything within the Long Pond area, that the thought idea, and I know this is just a wild guess, to have monitoring wells out in the area to ensure that any stormwater system is not going to negatively affect Long Pond.
That is a long time ago. I can ask.
I know it's hard to prove, but with having just something in there, if we could do that, I know the commission will probably bring it up at the meeting on Thursday, but to just bring it up with you tonight with the planning board, just so everybody can hear it. And it makes reference to all this in the conservation recommendations.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. The one thing about, and it really was, and I won't go on and on the way I can, but it really was a source of aggravation to me. So Dave had constructed a portion of the drainage system before he stopped work a decade ago. And originally, we were trying to just use that because first of all, it was designed to handle more than what it's going to handle. And the aggravating thing is, we needed to add this additional basin to meet, to the best of our ability, current regulations regarding stormwater management. So it actually provides an environmental benefit, so I can do something on that.
And in regards to that too, it was also listed in the recommendation that alternatives be found to create such a large basin, and it's also listed in here that the previously constructed basin may or not be acting as a vernal pool / wetland.
Yeah.
So, which it may also find in your DEP comments from the state as well. So, point duly noted, counter to you on that.
But the one thing is, there's no other way to deal with it.
And I understand that, and I understand that
and
it's practice
to
put stormwater closer to a wetland. I would just like to see that Long Pond area stay as it is and not be negatively affected due to either salt and sand being placed on there and washing into a basin that then overflows and flows into Long Pond.
So, and the lack of sanding and salting, that is a good idea, and we can do that as a condition, you know.
So Danny has something to say about that.
And just to kind of address the salt and sand.
Yeah.
You know, they do make they call it mag salt, which is like a more environmentally safe salt, which on a project in Maynard we used because that was also close to the turtle habitat.
Yeah.
There was monitoring wells that were also installed as well to make sure that that it wasn't having any negative impacts. So, the mag salt does work if the commission would like to see that. That's an alternative to the salt and sanding, because you're right, the salt does. But the other ones, that would be, they can talk to the Conservation Commission, and then at that point, when we come back here, we can discuss that as well.
And it is, it's funny. I hope it doesn't become a big thing with DEP, but the whole thing in a perfect world, the way to deal with that would be to put the development on the other side of the power lines. There were good reasons not to.
I understand. I understand all of that.
It's so compressed.
And I am appreciative for the plan that's here.
Yeah.
I just have to play the devil's advocate as best I can to just point out what was put in the document that was originally submitted 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, and
And
the sad
without,
thing
and without
is,
a new conservation analysis, without new findings, I have to go what's in the
Yeah.
old one. That's all. I will.
Thank
I will
you.
but it is a
suggest something.
compromise
Thank
like
you.
anything.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
It is.
Did- Pauline still had a comment, right? Pauline, did you still have a question or comment? Or are you gone? You done?
No, she's good.
Oh, you have something. We have something from agenda. Come on up.
Sorry. Not open space related. Hi. Andrew Seeley. I live just past the development. And my only thing was the DPW was kind enough to pave sections of Wright Road last year or the year before. My understanding is the project's going to take some number of years to complete.
Yeah, probably, yes.
And I wanted to know if you were willing to pave the remaining 1,200 square feet, or not square feet, linear feet of the road before the project started.
Well, I would tend to believe that, first of all, we had committed years ago with DPW, thank you, to do a couple of things, first of all, and one of them would be that we'd work with them to repair anything that got damaged. The time to do it is after construction, so it doesn't get torn up, and that commitment is still there. We're gonna have to do a minor improvement to the intersection with Wright Road and the Snake Hill Road that was noted in the traffic analysis a couple of years ago. And then I had committed with Dan and with his predecessor that, if there was anything that was chewed up pavement-wise, would be repairing it. So that is still a commitment that we would live by.
But not before.
You wouldn't want to do it before because it actually would get chewed up. What part of the road are you thinking of?
Well, the parts that haven't been fixed are just in not great condition, so it'd be more you committing to do it, fix what's there now, and then pave it after as well. A double commitment, if you say.
Well, I'll work with Dan and we'll come up with something. You got to be careful with roads what you wish for, because years ago, 15 years ago, the plan had been to really improve Wright Road to death, which would have been a disaster. And nobody wants to see that.
I agree.
It really is a lovely road, just the way it is. I'll work with Dan and see what's out there, and we can certainly come up with a plan that I'm sure everybody would be happy with.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see anybody else.
Okay, good. We have some other agenda items this evening.
I just had a couple of questions I got to deal with.
Yes, you do. You've been so patient. So let's do these couple of questions, and we're going to
And then
move
a couple
forward.
of informational things. One is, one I don't really need to bring up because I don't need your input on it. Heather had talked about shrubs and a wooden and I talked about a wooden guardrail.
Oh,
that
yes.
thing.
Right here.
And I'm going to give you language about that. It had come up last time somebody wanted fencing, literally, and I remember I became kind of testy about it. I don't want a chain link fence destroying the appearance of this thing. So we'll work with Dan to come up with a wooden guardrail along the street that would meet DPW standards. And then I'll come up with a planting plan for low shrubs to surround that so that it delineates it.
He's talking about the infiltration basin.
Yeah.
down by the street.
Yeah, because last time, I don't know if you remember, Ken, somebody had suggested
Yeah.
there should be a fence. I already talked about the piles and the material and signage. I'm gonna give you hours of operations suggestions when I come up with these potential approval conditions for you. Have
Hours
you
of
done that?
Hours of operations for.
The construction, so
Oh,
to limit construction.
So I have a set forth in my decision of set limit
Can
time.
you share that with
Which,
me?
yep,
Yeah,
I'll send that
it over to me.
Yep.
If you could. And then,
That's in our general conditions.
yeah, we had talked several times about streetlights, and one of the waivers that you're still gonna need to do is about streetlights. We're gonna do one at the intersection, one at the internal intersection. Then we were gonna do two, kind of about 2/3 of the way up on each side.
Let me see if I can find
What I was wondering about is if it would make more sense to have the one on the left where the parking lot is, instead of 1/3 of the way up the hill.
The parking lot in the rear towards the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
does that make more sense to you guys?
makes sense to me.
Although we wouldn't want to be encouraging after dark use, but on the other hand, if some poor soul,
You'll be exiting it.
yeah, I mean, that kind of made more sense to me.
Yeah, could you point it out? I see where you are. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so to be right in the back. So maybe instead of
Yeah.
on the left, we'll put one near that, near the trailhead, and then one before that first home on the right-hand side.
Up here?
Yeah, like right about there.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Collins.
Sure.
Is there gonna be a mail kiosk down at the opening? I've forgotten. I know we.
Yeah, I believe we have to, yes.
Yep, there is.
There
I
is,
can
and I think
show
it shows
it
on the plan.
right here.
Because I would ask that you would consider, lighting that, because this time of year, after 3:30, you can't find a thing,
Now,
Is
that's at
that-
about station 400 from the looks of it.
Yeah, give or take.
So maybe one there instead of at station 500 where the road intersects?
Yeah, I'm not going to die on this hill,
Both.
Bob, but
I do both.
I would
something that would work, something that would make it safe at the mail kiosk.
Yeah, and that does make
that's all.
sense.
maybe not. So I would still keep one up at the intersection just because it's necessary, but maybe just a something
Small light.
small,
A solar powered light on the top of the mail
Okay.
kiosk.
just something small.
Yeah, because
That
again,
faces down.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm gonna add that. Bear with me. Small light.
Okay, take your time, Bob.
We needed to ask you about that. Oh, fire suppression. So that came up a hearing or two ago where the fire chief suggested that the homes that have shared driveways should be sprinkled. When I actually spoke with somebody in Dan's office about pipe sizes, they actually don't even have a hookup charge yet that deals with residential sprinklers. And I spoke with Dave about it, and both he and I wondered, and I'm going to revisit this subject with the fire chief, if it wouldn't make more sense to actually put a hydrant at each one of those 3 driveways instead of sprinklering the homes. So I just wanted to let you know that I want to leave that open. I'll try and get an answer from the fire chief before we have the next hearing. I think a hydrant in those 4 locations where the shared driveways are, there's 4, I think. That would make sense.
I think there was 3. There's just this one, and this one right here.
Yeah, forgive me, but way down.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I think
This
there was
last
4.
one has technically it's one driveway and they split off to
Yeah.
the building.
So maybe if we did 4 hydrants instead of sprinkling the homes, that would actually make more sense and might be helpful in keeping the water lines cleaner. I don't know, because periodically they have to flush,
The only thing I would just say is the fire department, their biggest concern was because it's a shared driveway, if the driveway is ever blocked for some reason and they can't get in, the sprinkler system will at least give people enough time just to get out of the buildings if they're on fire. So, I mean, bring it up to talk to them.
I'm going to bring it up because I do think it's overkill.
But I think that is their biggest fear, is because that's why they don't really like common driveways.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say is, I mean, firemen in my experience are not shy. They will find their way to a fire.
Agreed.
If there's something blocking, they'll get it out of the way. And I think,
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
My experience with managing residential properties, interior sprinkler systems that are managed by homeowners often get neglected.
Very bad.
And generate insurance claims.
so I think hydrants might be a better solution, so I'm gonna bring that up with
Discuss it
him.
with fire, right?
Yep. And then, the only other thing, originally this was one more lot. It was a much bigger thing, and it was all single-family homes. We had to reduce the number of lots in order to make it, the numbers work, because it was an odd number. I was gonna suggest that there be 2 affordables rather than the 4 that I had suggested before, because I had to give up a lot. And I just wanted to make certain that wasn't an issue. If it is an issue, the only place I can fit anything else would be right on Wright Road. It'd be more than happy to do that over on the left, but I don't think it's a good idea myself.
Just so that everyone knows, this does not trigger our inclusionary housing bylaw. So they're giving us above and beyond
Yeah,
what
so
they're even required.
So the 2 is fine.
it's the judgment of the applicant.
And I think, oh, and the only other stupid question that I have, and I don't mean to put Dan on the spot, because Dan is a friend.
Okay.
But there's a planting strip in the boulevard entrance.
Yep.
And they didn't, the way I understood it, Dan, and I don't know, Matt, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys didn't want to take care of that.
Correct.
And I don't have the reason to create a homeowners association other than that. I mean, if I put an innocuous kind of planting in there that doesn't require much maintenance, wouldn't that be okay? It's gonna be a town road, so you're gonna be stuck with it.
I mean, I think that may work. Why don't you connect with Matt and I?
Okay.
After the meeting, and we can talk about what might work. And also cue us in with the conversation on the fire chief.
Yeah, I will.
In the houses there with the sprinklers and hydrants.
I shall, yeah, and that would be fine. Okay, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Because, I think he could just make it concrete, and I think that would be a sin. I think he could do something nice there that wouldn't be a burden. So I wanted to bring that
Yeah.
up. So we'll talk.
Absolutely. I think we can meet in the middle to, get your idea going without putting some sort of burden on public works.
Is it
Perfect.
required?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Matt. That's all my questions. You answered them
Beautiful.
all.
Thank you. I think at this point is appropriate for us to get a motion for continuance.
Just one quick
One more
update.
thing?
Yep, just so that everyone knows. We did receive.
Forgive me.
No, don't worry, I got
whoops.
it. We received the application for special permit, stormwater management
good.
permit. So I will get this this application submitted, stamped into the town clerk, and this will run so that we can open it on the 14th, and that way we
Beautiful.
can just combine the two.
They can do simultaneous.
Oh, yeah, absolutely
we
we can.
open it and then combine the two meetings.
Yep.
Gene, I had one question for Heather. So, would it be realistic? Oh, okay. Would it be realistic to assume that there would be an order of conditions by the 14th of January?
So the commission meets on the 9th.
Yep.
Their second meeting, so they're meeting on the 9th.
Okay,
So
so it's possible.
we'll have to see how tomorrow goes.
Yeah.
Because I know some of the questions from DEP in regards to, their comments in regards to testing, I think that was already done.
Yep.
I just need to verify that, and I don't know if the commission's gonna wanna have that verified during the planning board meeting
Yeah.
for the stormwater permit, or if it's something we can do outside of that. We
Gee,
just
can
gotta
you
speak that
send
up.
me their
Their
comments?
comments, I-
Because I haven't seen them.
Why would they send them to you?
Yeah, they didn't. So if you could send them to me, I'd
Okay.
appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I can do that.
Okay.
So
it might work.
I don't want to speak out of turn with them
Yeah,
on
but
that
it
because
might
I have
work.
no idea how they're gonna go. It just works out sometimes. We're gonna go off of where commission meets first and the
Yeah.
planning board instead of being in the same week. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Okay, but it sounds like it's possible.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay,
Excellent.
you've answered all my questions. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you for putting up with me again.
Thank you.
And I want to wish all of you a wonderful holiday. And
too.
I'll see you next year.
See you in the new year. Motion for continuance.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Oh,
Second.
seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Aye.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We'll have a 5-minute recess and we'll regroup. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
See you all soon.
Hello and welcome. Everyone's back, right? Jeff is
hold
back.
Hold on, let me unmute. Jeff is back.
Jeff is back. All our board members are back. Good. Meeting will resume. First, the next order of business is we're opening the public hearing for 99 Barnum Road, map 34, lot 137. I make a motion that we open up the public hearing for 99 Barnum Road.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Aye.
Kathleen? Nope, not Kathleen. Sorry, pardon. Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. We have a presentation from I believe Dan or Matt is going to lead the presentation for us.
I can start out, and I know Woodard and Kern will kind of go through the application, the technical.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so just a little background on the project. So 99 Barnum Road, that's the Grove Pond Water Treatment Plant parcel. And so what we're looking to do is install a storage tank. It's called a clear well storage tank. And the reason for that is we've had issues, as you being residents here are probably aware, and I gave a presentation on, with our treatment capacity at the plant due to the PFAS treatment we've installed. So over the last few years, we've had outdoor water bans, full bans. We've had our emergency interconnections at the ready. We've used them occasionally. We've had to ask some of our high users to reduce use during high demand seasons, things like that, just because we aren't able to produce as much water through the plant as we used to, the PFAS treatment. So the vessels in the plant, we push them as hard as we can. If we push water any harder, it'll overpressurize the vessels, and so we can't push any more. So what this storage tank does is it basically creates a barrier between the distribution system and the treatment plant. So the pressure of the distribution system coming back toward the plant ahead, we don't have to overcome that anymore. So it frees up, it gives us more room to be able to push the water through the treatment plant and into the storage tank, then from the storage tank into the distribution system. So by that, we're basically back at our near pre-PFAS treatment volume of water that we can get through our plant. So I keep calling it the most important DPW project. You know, every year we're kind of at this, you know, when high demand season gets there, we're kind of cutting it close with it and dealing with the issues. So I think that's kind of a good background on it. And so we're at the point where we've worked with the Army, and Woodard and Kern's done a good job keeping this moving, and a good job on the design. And the Army is paying for this project as PFAS is the reason we're here. So that's the good news too. And so now we're at the point where we're doing the permitting here, and the project is actually out to bid right now because we're trying to get this constructed as soon as we can, so we can have a better season, high demand season next year. So I think that's kind of a little background. But maybe, I don't know if you want to talk now, Morgan, or whoever from Woodard and Kern, it would probably be good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And Ms. Roper, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. My name is Morgan Roper. I'm the project manager from Woodard and Curran, and as Dan mentioned, we're the consulting engineer for this project. So.
Excellent. And
so is it helpful if I just walk through the site plan and the different components, or skip to questions directly?
A brief walkthrough would be appreciated. Yes.
Sure. So on the plan north side of the page, you'll see the tank or the clear well that Dan was referencing. That will hold approximately 75,000 gallons of water. We're looking at somewhere in the realm of 25 feet tall is what that tank will be. And the purpose of that, as Dan mentioned, is to create what we call a hydraulic break between the treatment plant and the rest of the distribution system. So water will flow from the plant into that new tank, and then will be pumped out. So the square structure that you see sort of with the new access way there is going to be the new pump station. So that will hold 3 booster pumps and associated controls equipment, but that's all that will be held in there. The rectangle located just planned north of that building is a new emergency generator that allows the whole facility to operate uninterrupted in the event of a power outage. That generator will be in a sound attenuated enclosure to keep sound down when it is running, but largely won't be used. And then the other feature that I wanted to point out is the square structure that's located planned south of the building. That is a new electrical transformer. Because of these new pumps, the electrical service to the site will need to be upgraded and upsized. So that is the associated equipment with that.
Are
The other
those
thing-
dots bollards around the transformer?
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Okay, because I saw that was requested by someone. Okay, thank you.
And then the other thing that I wanted to note is the modifications to the existing stormwater system. So with the new impervious surface to meet the requirements, that stormwater structure got just a little bit bigger, and a few modifications were made to that to accommodate the new development.
Excellent. Thank you. Questions?
Do you want me to, so there's just a...
Danny, you want to make some, start with some
just a
comments?
couple things.
Sure.
Yeah, so I gave everyone the staff report, which kind of just ran through quickly my review of the application and some outstanding things that were I thought initially were necessary. But I did receive an email, which you should have in your packets, from the building commissioner about the project. So initially in their application, they state that they are in the A2 zone, which would require a special permit for the municipal use under 2.3, and that they were within the Aquifer Protection District, which would also require a special permit. Charlie did look at those, and he did come to the conclusion that the project actually falls within the general business zone.
Okay.
So the general business zone line kind of falls like right across like the middle of right here. Kind of goes right across the project like this. And then the rest of it is within the A2 zone. So since the project where this is being conducted falls within the general business, and you also get a 50-foot kind of leeway, this falls under the general business. So they would not be required to have a special permit.
Nice.
And then because this use is a permitted use under the aquifer protection, and it does not meet the 15% threshold, which requires you for a special permit of 15% increase of impervious surface, this project does not need a special permit as well. So those two special permits, which were initially thought to be necessary, are not.
Beautiful.
Those were one of my comments in there, and so those have been addressed. And then there are some additional waivers that I did request from the applicant, and they will be, they got my comments, so they'll be issuing those as well with a written letter with justifications that are necessary.
Okay, so the first paragraph of your summary, those issues have been addressed.
Yes.
Great.
Yep. And then I would say those are like the important points at this point that I wanted to raise. We do have department head comments in your packets. I believe there is a letter which I think the board should kind of read and discuss from the town manager's office. I think it would be good for if you want to read that into the record.
Oh, the whole the letter?
No, I mean, I think it was just an important letter that I think we should, at least the board should discuss that. It is in the record, but if you want to just kind of discuss it.
I'll just address those. So this is a letter from the town manager, Robert Pombillon, asking us to consider that a third-party review in this instance would not be necessary, would impose untimely and expensive delays that we don't want to see. And the justification and rationalization for this is this, that the actual engineering is being conducted by Woodard and Kern, and it's going to be reviewed by two other parties. At least the DPW, our own professionals in town, are reviewing that, and the Army has its own engineers reviewing it. So that's two sources of review against the initial submission of engineering from Woodard and Kerr, and I think anything else is just beyond redundant. That's my opinion.
The only other request that the board will need to vote on tonight is the waiver for the application fee.
So how do I?
Have they submitted a request for that?
Yes, that was put into their
The application?
and Robert actually discusses it on his letter.
Should we do these right now?
No, I would just talk about I would just do the waiver of the application fee.
That's
so I would
just
say,
the waiver of the application fee tonight.
And yeah, and so it's the town's project paying would be the town paying the town.
No, we got it. Yeah, I got it.
Just so that everyone understands why.
Right, that's exactly what
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
May I move to
Please.
waive the application fee for the water project at 99 Burnham Road as presented?
Second.
Excellent. Any further discussion?
Yes. Is there any possibility of any future fees that could be waived simultaneously tonight? Like inspection fees or other outside fees that the town would normally charge when they do, because we're gonna do it ourselves, I mean, there's no other fees, okay.
Not that I know of, no.
But,
And
And
if I may, Mr. Diskin, I believe, I don't think the plumbing fee, I don't think the plumbing inspector will be out here, but that is outside of a town
Electrical?
function. And electrical, Mr. Van Skalk is shaking his head, yes.
Yeah.
oh, there'd be all kinds of.
I also don't think the planning board has the authority to waive those. Those are outside of your scope.
Yeah.
You can only your bylaw and your
Inspection,
regulations
the
only allow
application.
you anything with
So-
your
So I appreciate the meaning of the question, but unfortunately, I don't think we can go that far.
Okay, great. Well, I'll do it then. I make a motion that we honor the request for waiver of a third party.
We've already done
I
it.
think Jeff did it.
Oh, you already did. Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Oh, did we get a second? Oh, we're getting the vote, right? Okay. Any further discussion? Jesus. Sorry, guys.
Nope, that's okay.
Any further? No, hearing none. Ken?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. And we're not going to do the waiver for the third party review.
You could you have to do it tonight.
We do have to do it. Yes. So,
Mr. Chair?
yes, please.
I'd like to move that the planning board waive, per the request of the town manager, the third-party review requirement on this project.
I'll second. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is there a regulation or any obligation to have a third party? This is just a discretionary choice of the planning board, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Within the regulations, it states that they can be
Correct.
conducted.
Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, our DPW is recognized statewide for their expertise in this area,
Yes.
which is why I have no compunction at all about requesting this supporting this waiver.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? Ken?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It is waived. Beautiful. Is there anything else we should do on this tonight?
Is there anything that the board felt that they need to ask the applicant, Woodard and Kerr, and the engineer on any of these comments that you guys felt wanted?
I do have a question for maybe for Dan, or it's interesting. I do remember the original presentation and the need to give a head break with this clear well. Although it doesn't come without cost, because that's very interesting that there's a new transformer and new power. Do you have a sense of does this double the electrical load, triple? Just curious, how much more does it cost to then repump the water up to the tank?
I couldn't get that off the top of my head, but I could figure that out. Morgan, you probably don't have it.
I don't have an exact number, but there will be a slight increase in electrical usage at the site, but the well pumps that are currently pumping all the way up to distribution will be operating lower on their curve, so at a
Okay.
more efficient level. So you'll see some savings associated there, but there will be net some increase over what's currently being used. But
Right.
again,
And like, oh, so I was gonna say with all our pumps, there'll be VFDs as well to be as efficient as possible.
If I may, I believe he's saying variable speed pumps.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Variable frequency.
You guys with the lingo. As they run slower, they use less power.
Variable frequency drive. Yep.
Very frequency drives. And Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if I may
please.
ask a question,
Mhm.
it went by very quickly earlier. I do understand and I do recognize the need for water bans, for lots of different reasons. I asked this question carefully. You don't foresee us removing water bans because this is here, because my understanding water bans are a requirement of the Commonwealth in many cases.
Yeah, so you're right, Jeff. So we have a water withdrawal permit, Water Management Act permit with the state to withdraw from the this is the Nashua River Basin, Spec Ponds and the Merrimack River Basin. So as part of that, they require us to have that odd even 9 to 5 every May 30th through November September 30th.
During the season, yeah,
During the
exactly that.
season, correct.
Yeah.
So that is required no matter what. We have to do that at a minimum every year. It's just if we go beyond that is what we've had to do the last few years.
So this will relieve the pressure. Excuse me. This will. How do without being satirical or ironic, how do I say this? I don't want people to think that, oh, we're putting this in, I can water everything. We're still going to be in a situation where we have to be careful, but that is a Commonwealth.
Right.
So this is necessary. I think we should do it. I just want people to understand that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Excellent. I think it's appropriate to ask for a continuance, right? No, more?
I was gonna ask Danny to go through his comments. But you,
Oh, you want me to go through mine?
yeah, there's like quite a few here.
Yeah.
So the engineer we can be, aware that the engineer's following up on those comments.
Yep, and so Jenna reached out from Woodard and Curran, just some clarification questions. Oh, I just lost. Clarification questions on some of my comments.
Okay.
So I do know that they are looking at it and they are addressing them. So the first one is already addressed. Number 2 and number 3 are the waiver requests, which I talked about earlier. Those are the additional ones. The first under the site plans, which is the zoning table, they're going to be adding that to the plans. I did talk to them. The limit of clearing, so this was something that I raised to them along this area down here. They're proposing the limit of work over here, but I think, so on that one I was talking about maybe possibly trying to add some additional screening, but I think the fence is going to be there, so I think that's plenty. That should suffice as a visual barrier, but that's kind of, I just kind of proposed it for them to talk about.
So it's a security, at the end of the day, it's a security fence.
The extent of the clearing is really due to the grading around that tank. So as you can see, the regrading extends near to where that limit of clearing is. So that's what's driving that boundary. There is a fence there primarily for security, and we've tried to maintain that vegetative buffer in the areas that we could as well.
What else?
Wasn't sure if Ken's. You still thinking on that one?
Yeah, I was thinking that if it were not a municipal project, would we be considering adding some trees for screening between the road and the fence line? Or asking the applicant to consider some additional screening?
It is something I put in there for them to consider.
Okay, thank you.
The next one was the silt fencing. So currently the detail just proposes a silt sock. Typically we like to see a silt sock or a straw wattle with silt fence behind it to assure no sediment goes off site. And especially my biggest concern was along the 100-foot buffer area up just north of the tank. So that is a comment, and they did reach out about that one as well. Updating the construction detail for the silt fencing would for the silt socket showing the silt fencing would be a comment that goes with it. Another one was showing the locations for the stockpiles, just to where they would be keeping the materials, making sure that my biggest thing is making sure that it's not too close to the 100-foot buffer. I mean, obviously, it's not an issue. It's not within the buffer, but it's just something to be cognizant about. The existing basin, my question on that one was whether it's going to be continued to be used as is during construction, which I'd assume it is, but when they respond on that one. Obviously,
we have a response prepared so far. You're just looking through that as you're going through these, and we'll send that over to you after this meeting. But the contractor is allowed to use that as a part of their sediment control plan. They're responsible for maintaining it during that process, and they'll be instructed to phase construction so that it's usable as necessary throughout the duration of construction.
The other ones I had was, the proposed elevation, if they had anything for that on the actual tank. I know they proposed one for the building, but if they had anything for the tank.
Didn't they just say 25 feet?
No, he means a shot.
What it would look, not like an actual shot of what.
I'm sorry.
What the tank would look like.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Pardon me.
I asked them to provide a planting schedule because there is some proposed landscaping, just so that we know exactly what's being put in there. A detail on the proposed gate, and just the number of how much total square footage of land clearing there's going to be proposed, and if the NIPD's permit would be required.
Is it?
I'm assuming. I'd assume so, but I don't have those numbers.
And we'll get by the next meeting.
But that'll be included in their responses.
The proposed, could you go to the demo plan?
Yep.
And that shows the silt fence, right?
Yep.
So if we're gonna, is the silt fence shown on this side of the work over here? Is that what that X is that?
No, the X I believe is the chain link fence that's going to be removed.
It's gonna be removed. So do we need protection over here so that during construction, if there's a washout, it looks like they're stripping the pavement, can be driving on gravel during the work. Is that gonna be?
Danny, could you show me where he's pointing to, please, with the mouse?
Yeah, along here.
Thank you.
Just asking Dan Mishkelquick to consider that as well. Isn't there gonna be a need for, I see they're putting that stone in there to run the trucks over. I presume that's what that is.
Yep, the construction entrance.
Should we consider a hay bale, silt fence, a combined line on the other side of the driveway as well, in case there's a washout coming down that way? Isn't that a slope there?
Yeah, the slope, but it slopes towards the street. So for it to go, I don't foresee it going across the road and then down, because this is all going to be torn up. This is going to be gravel anyways, so.
All right, okay, just a thought.
Yeah. Maybe after the tank is in place and the tank would let go, that'd be a problem. But...
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, Danny, just looking at the grading, but Morgan, we could take a closer look at it and just confirm.
Thank you.
Having driven in there, I think it's higher to the left, but we'll take a look at it,
Yeah.
And if I may, this is the demo plan?
Yep.
So we basically have a lot of scrub and stuff already existing along that road.
Yeah.
I was just digging through my plans looking for the landscape plan. I didn't find it. So, yeah. Talk about it next meeting. But there's an awful lot. I don't think you guys are. So you're going to clear out to that limit of work line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Still pretty far.
I'll drive. I'll have to take a look at it. I mean, have you guys done a site walk on this?
No.
Well, could we? I'd like to.
Does the board want to?
Ken?
I'm fine with the sidewalk.
Sure. Nathan? Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, that's why.
Yeah, I would like to set, yes, I would like a sidewalk.
We would need to set it.
Let's do it.
when would you guys like to do it?
We typically do Thursdays at 8.
So the next one would be obviously be the 19th, or it would be after the holidays, the 9th, because our next meeting would be the 14th.
What do you guys feel about it?
We can't post it in time for this Thursday, huh?
No. I would have had to have done it this morning.
Yeah.
Which does everyone prefer?
It's fine with me, either one. You guys set it up.
I prefer earlier than later, just in case. So was it the 16th?
The 19th.
19th? Yeah, let's do it.
19th. Yeah.
12, 19, 24.
If Dan can meet us there.
Yeah, is that okay, Dan?
Yeah.
At 8 a.m.?
8 a.m. on the 19th. Okay.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Yep. Okay, good. I think we need a motion for continuance, correct?
Yeah.
Move to continue to the next planning board meeting, discussion on 99 Barnum Road, water tower siting.
Great. I second. Any further discussion on the continuance? Hearing none. Ken?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any objection if we just did the meeting minutes really fast so we can get them over with and done?
Of course.
Thank you, Dan.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan,
Thank you, everybody.
Morgan, thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt.
And Matt, thank you, folks. Have a good evening. Thank you and happy holidays. I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as amended and submitted to you for November 12th, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion?
I read them. They're okay with me.
And can everyone vote on this one?
Yep.
Ken?
Aye.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. So those are approved, and I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the November 26, 2024 Air Planning Board meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Ken?
Aye.
Kathleen?
I can't vote.
Oh, sorry, you're abstaining.
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Great, those are done. Anything critical we should know in the project status updates, my friend?
Critical. So the 38 Groton Harvard Road, or as we all, the Matfield project up by the assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
They are getting close to submitting. We actually will be meeting with them on Friday to discuss the process of the conservation analysis and the process of what they will need to be submitting for through the planning board. So we're getting very close. They've submitted a conservation analysis to myself and to Heather, as well as a traffic study to me to look at. So they're moving along very quickly. The conservation analysis is a process right now. I'll bring up Heather for this because we've actually met on. We had a meeting last week. Was it? Last week.
Yes, it went Thursday.
Thursday. We met just to kind of go through making sure that Heather and myself are on the same page as to what we want to see for a process for the OSRD, because this will be our first one from the beginning to the end going forward, and going through the rules and regulation and the OSRD. So this kind of leads into the next topic, but I'm not going to go through the bylaw comments that we had, but we'll talk about kind of like the rules and regulations and just the steps that we want to discuss for that. So in our rules,
I didn't bring my notes on.
that's okay. I have mine, and we can kind of just touch on quickly on it, and we can have a more substantive discussion at the next meeting, just because it's already getting pretty late.
So just give us enough of things to think about.
Exactly. So for the initial thing, step one is the way it works is informally meet with the planning board to discuss the process. They've already done that. They came here informally, and they came before you guys just to give you a quick informal meeting on what they're doing and what they're going to look to do. So that's step one. Step two is to prepare the conservation analysis and the concept sketch and get that over to myself and to Heather. So they've already done that. Heather will be in contact with them about trying to get them which meeting they're going to be before the Conservation Commission. In the meantime, When they do that, that'll start the conservation analysis process through Conservation Commission. So they will start the review of it. They may get a peer review for the project, and they will be providing recommendations to this board, recommendations and findings. During that process, what we've discussed is we would also like the board, I will give this to the board, the conservation analysis, to review it and also provide comments. Because what we want to do is, so when they provide us the final list of comments from the peer review or Heather,
Yeah, from the Conservation Commission.
from the Conservation
So the
Commission.
planning board will give
the-
their comments to the Conservation Commission and we'll review that.
We have to vote on those findings.
Yeah, we will, but I'm getting there. So those comments that you guys will have will also be on that list so that when we get to the meeting with the planning board, you guys are just running down all of the findings and voting on which ones you want them to take into their plans. And so the way it'll work is we'll go through each recommendation and finding, go discuss each one of them, why they're there, and then the board will vote on that finding. We want this, we don't want this. That applicant will then take that full list prepared by Heather, once it's all voted on, and implement that into the plans. The applicant will then submit to us, because this is not a typical OSRD subdivision, it's going to be a condominium style, so it's going to go through the site plan review portion. So as part of that, they will submit a yield plan as part of their application, which shows they meet on how they got their unit count. And all the board will be doing at that point is, does this meet all of our requirements under the yield plan? Yes, it does. Okay, all set. We move on to the site plan. During that process, Heather and I have talked about what we want to see as when we get towards the end of decision and timing and phasing of certain items, conservation restrictions, conservation analysis, baseline monitoring report, staging, meets and bounds, signage. We have an idea of what we would like to see timing for within the decision, but we can get to that when we do the full discussion here. But what we would like from the board is for the board to look at the bylaw, look at the rules and regulations, think about things that you guys have done so far with other projects that you guys have liked, disliked, and things you would like to address, so that when Heather and I get to the point where we're presenting to the board, we would like to make some revisions, probably not for the spring, but for the fall, to get the bylaw updated, so that we're fine tuning this so that it works it's working better and better each time. And then the rules and regulations, that goes through the board. That's a public hearing through the board, which we will discuss at a later date as well. So it's just something that I want the board to start thinking about, because we would like to really, once we give you guys the presentation and what we kind of see, we want to see what the board would think on about those changes and what they foresee for the future of the OSRD.
Great. Terrific. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I think we've had a long evening. I'd accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Good night, everyone. If I don't see you, happy holidays.